Hello, Facebook. We are live and we are back at our regular time on Wednesday for our podcast. I'd like to introduce you to Leisa Reid and Connie Benjamin, who are with us today. We're going to have an amazing show, so I'd love all of you to stick around. And, it's fun to watch it on video. Even if you're driving, you could hear it in your car. But it's just fun to see their beautiful faces and you can see what they look like. But again, we'll have our podcast come out live later this week, so you can always listen to it on your favorite podcast outlet as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Hello, ladies, and welcome back to Lead Up for Women, Speak Up to Lead Up. I am your host, Colleen Biggs, and I am very excited that we are getting even closer to Thanksgiving. As many of you know, and I talk about this all the time, it is my favorite holiday, and it pains me and it makes my heart so sad that the day after Halloween, everything is gone, and the only thing you can find in the stores is Christmas, and everyone's taken their decorations down and put their trees up already. My house is still decorated like fall. I still have the pumpkins out because for me, the abundance of gratitude that shows up in November is so great. And I have forever in my family used November as our month of gratitude for us to really share with each other and really hone in on what we are grateful for and kind of reflect back on our year of what it's been like. And we have a lot to be grateful for this year in 2020. So I do want to encourage all of you out there listening to think about all of the beautiful things in your life that have been gifts this year in an unprecedented time. What was a gift in your life? What are you the most grateful for? And what were all the silver linings that came out of just this crazy time in our lives? So please, if you want to email me at info@leadupforwomen.com, I would love to know what those are, and I will share those next week on our show. So please feel free to send those to me. I also wanted to share with you that we've got a webinar coming up. You guys, I talk about this all the time, our Teaching Tuesday webinars. This is where we bring our members, just like you see today on our show, forward, and they host a webinar and teach their genius. This is education for you. These are tools for you to put in your toolbox. This is inspiration and motivation, and it's free. So there's no excuse for you not to attend. And we're going to have Jill Lublin of talking about guerrilla publicity. She is talking about how you can get known everywhere. And women, one of the biggest issues we have is getting our name out there. We are constantly working on marketing and promoting ourselves. So here's an opportunity for you to understand how to be the number one influencer in your industry. And she says you've got to get bigger and better at media visibility. So let's learn how to do that from her. And that's going to be on November 24th. We'll put the link for you guys to sign up for that Teaching Tuesday event. All right, let's go ahead and move on to introduce our first guest today. I have Leisa Reid with us, the founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now. And when I met Leisa, I just loved her fire, her red lips, all about her. And really is just kind of her attitude of getting up in front of, speaking and how it can really help your business. I can tell you that I spoke and was a keynote speaker about 4 weeks ago in Chicago, and I made about $6,000 in about 45 minutes just from having about 25 women or 20 women sign up for Lead Up for Women. It was just very quick when it happened, and all I did was just tell them to get out their phones and sign up. Of course, there was a lot of stuff I said before that, but Leisa, let's talk about, because you've been a mentor for a lot of business professionals and entrepreneurs, and you really understand that getting this exposure and getting out in front of people is crucial. And I know it for my business, it is as well too. So welcome to the show, Leisa.
Thank you, Colleen. I'm so excited to be here. Very, very fun. Very fun.
Yeah, so obviously you haven't always had, your company that you run now. Tell us a little bit about how did you become the founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now, and what was your previous life like? Why did you get into this industry?
Well, it's interesting because Connie and I had just had this really great conversation the other day about all of this, all of the stories. But I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher of some sort or a trainer. So just even from being a little kid, and I think we can all relate to that, where you're like, there's a dream that you have and you don't even know why you have it. You just are drawn to something. And I was always, always, always drawn to being a teacher of some kind. When it came to speaking, there's lots of little dominoes that fell that got me to where I am today. However, I didn't become a professional speaker until I was 40 years old. So one of those little taps on the shoulder that I got, back, when I was like 13 years old about being a speaker, that stayed with me. And I can look back on those little taps and see like, oh yeah, I was meant to do this, but I didn't do it till I was 40. And then my first year as a speaker, I actually booked over 80 speaking engagements. And part of what I was talking to Connie about was that people kept asking me, how are you doing this? What are you doing? Can you share with me? Tell me what it is. And at the time, my response was typically, I wish I could, but it's more than just a sentence. I mean, this is a lot of things that I do. And one day, and this was now, I'd probably spoken over 200 times, 300 times at this point. And a gentleman and I were having a conversation on the phone, and he said, well, can you tell me about your speaking business? And I said, well, I don't have one. But have a good day, kind of like a weird conversation. And I hung up the phone and I said to myself, I don't know if I said it out loud or if it was felt loud in my head. I said, that's the last time I'm ever saying that. Like from now on, I have a speaking business. It starts right now. And I think I got like my website like the next day or whatever. I was done. I was done with not being able to serve people when they kept asking me for help.
Yeah. So then how do you serve people today, Leisa?
So what I do now is I catalog, well, back then, I literally cataloged all the strategies, all the things that I do to get those kind of results. And now I have it broken down into a curriculum that I teach people in my academy. So they have it comes down to even a script of what I might say on the phone to somebody, or a script of an email template that I might send to get what I call like a one call close or a one email close, how to build relationships, how to get your speaker sheet done. What is a speaker sheet even? What is that at all? I mean, I didn't even know what that was. I had booked over 100 talks and never even heard of speaker sheets. I didn't know I needed one. How to prospect, how to, know where your target audience is. And then one of the key points that I help people with is the monetization strategies of speaking. So I loved what you said, Colleen, about how you got that $6,000 in 45 minutes. That's because you're a strategic thinker. You have a big heart, but you also are running a business. And you can do both, right? You can make money and help people at the same time and feel really good about it. So that's one of the things that I want to always make sure my speakers know that that's possible.
Yeah. And let's talk about how, thank you for sharing that information. Let's talk about how women, or now, do you work specifically with women or do you work with men and women?
I work with men, although I tend to attract more women for my business, but I love working with men too. So
Yeah.
more the
So
merrier.
I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. So our listeners
Sure.
knew. And so working with individuals, both men and women, how are you able to help them navigate, especially those that were speaking prior to the pandemic and the shutdown? How has that really changed your business since March? Because if you were helping people get booked on, stages now, it looks a lot different than it was back in March, because I had just come back from a book launch and like a week later they shut down the country.
Right.
What does that look like now?
Well, great question, Colleen. And the particular speakers that I work with are people who are entrepreneurs who have a service or business that they would like to utilize speaking to market that business and attract those clients, right? And so the really, really, really good news for everybody listening, the best news ever is that it really hasn't changed that much. You would think, but because I launched my a newer version of my academy this January 2020. And then of course, March 2020, things happened. And as I reflect back on that, all of that content is the same. You still prospect, you still develop relationships, you still need to reach out to people, you still need to follow up on your leads, you still have to have a talk ready to rock, you still need a speaker sheet. Like there's just things it's the same. So if you're thinking, oh, I should wait till it gets back to normal. No, 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 no. Now more than ever, well, I'll tell you what's changed. Here's something that's changed. I get booked quicker now than I ever did before. In the past, it was like three, at least I wouldn't expect to get booked within 3 months because they usually already have a speaker. Now they're like, well, can you speak next week, next month, next? And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, sure. And I've actually had over 50 virtual talks since April.
That's amazing.
So there's tons. Your reach, you can, local, international, national, wherever you want to go, you're there at the click of a button. You don't have to worry about a hotel, flight, anything like that.
That's my favorite part. So
Mhm.
let's just go back and kind of anchor in that part. I
Yeah.
can speak now at more opportunities and not have to fly and spend the time or the money that I'm saving. So if I'm and there's different types of speaking, and we'll talk to that because there's the
Sure.
pay to play and the ones where you're being paid to speak. But if you're paying to play, especially, you can save a lot of money from not having to fly there, get a hotel, get a car, whatever it is you would have had to do for a couple of days
Oh yeah.
to go in and speak somewhere and then come back. So, and sponsoring, sponsoring an event. So let's talk about the different. You've got a book
Mhm.
behind you that I see there that gets speaking gigs now. So congratulations on
Thank
being
you.
an author and having that book. So which goes to show, I want all the ladies listening to this and men, because I do have some men that listen to my show too, that she's developed a 7-step process to really help you develop yourself as a speaker. And that really is important because, again, no matter what business you have, getting people to know about it and getting people to understand who you are, people want to do business with people that they trust and like. And
Mhm.
what better way to get people to trust and like you than to get up and have a conversation in front of them, and
Absolutely.
share your stories and take them on a journey of your life so they can get to know you a little bit better. So, Leisa, let's talk about the different types of speaking opportunities that are out there today in this kind of there's a little bit of a hybrid still going on. Some are in person. It's very rare. Few people. Most are virtual and they're on Zoom. So,
Mhm.
what types of opportunities are out there for people?
It's really the same as before. The only difference I've noticed is some people decided not to go virtual, but most people have. In fact, I'm always surprised when they're like, "Well, we decided not to do virtual meetings." I'm like, Why? What are you doing?" I mean, they're not meeting at all. I'm like, "Okay." Uh, so okay. Uh,
Why? I don't know why.
yeah, I'm not sure why.
Bad business decision, and that you could jump right on that right away and go, well, let me show you how much money you could make if you could
Yeah.
do these in person.
Yeah. So it's very similar. So what I usually do is when I'm helping somebody craft like get crystal clarity on where are you going to speak, that'll help narrow it down. Like I have one client who he likes to speak to higher education associations. He also speaks Spanish and he has a doctorate in business administration. So he's very comfortable in that business environment, right? Education, business, entrepreneurs, things like that. But he also speaks Spanish. So I was like, oh my gosh, like you don't have to look any further. Like just those couple of items, if you even put in Google, you'd be flooded with opportunities of where you could speak. So it's not that there's not enough, it's there's so many. So in fact, it's about narrowing it down, like where are your people? Where are your clients? Where do you have something in common? Maybe if your clients are female, there's a ton of women's networking. You literally could Google women's networking groups and millions of searches
Yeah.
millions of things would come up. So it's really like narrowing it down. Maybe you want to speak in another state now that now that we're virtual, you're like, oh, well, I could be a national speaker now. Or maybe you want to be international, maybe
Yeah.
in another country that has a group. So there's all these really cool opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and don't be afraid to. I've worked with some women that'll say, "Well, I don't ever speak anywhere unless I'm paid." And you could really pass up a really great opportunity
Yeah.
if someone's offering for you to come and speak without paying you, but
Right.
they're giving you the opportunity to sell yourself from stage.
Hmm.
That is one of the best ways to make a lot of money really
It
quickly.
is. And
You're
that's
good at
that.
it. Yeah.
I find that that question or topic of paid speaking, not paid speaking, it's ironic that that is like the most, one of the most popular questions I get. And I think, wow, when I hear that question, I think money is being left on the table because it's part of your strategy. Getting paid, quote unquote, to speak, like getting a speaker fee is one monetization strategy as a speaker, just one.
And most of the time,
There's
if they
lots of
pay
them.
you, yeah, if they pay you, you're not able to sell from stage. So if they're paying you, most of the time, they're wanting you to inspire or motivate. But, depending upon who you are, you're still able to obviously win some people over that, and again, depending upon the audience that is sitting there and the platform for which you're speaking at, right?
Yeah.
If you're speaking at a celebration dinner for a company, that might not be one that you'll be able to get clients from. But yes, I agree with you. Don't ever pass up the opportunity if they're not paying you, because there's opportunities for you to make double, triple, quadruple what they would pay you to speak.
Yes. And also it's all about having that clear strategy of what makes sense for your business, for your personality, for how you funnel people through, what makes the most sense. Because if the opportunity isn't the right audience, isn't going to really necessarily move you forward, or isn't something that that you would like to spend your time doing, then it's a no, right? Regardless of the money. So it's really like getting clear on what's a yes, what's a no for me as a speaker. And there's lots of factors that come into play.
Right. And there really is. And having a clear message and a clear strategy on why you're doing it and what your outcome, what are you looking to
Yeah.
have as your outcome from this? For me, getting up into a room in front of men would just not even be a smart decision for me. I don't serve men. I'm married to them. I have sons. I have grandsons. But I don't coach them. I don't have men in my organization. I don't generally interview them on my podcast. So I don't have platforms for them to be able to shine on. So having that conversation, I'm not really sure why I would have it. However, in networking opportunities, when you're in rooms with several men, it's like, hey, do you know any women that have businesses that really could use the opportunity to step into the spotlight and promote their business? They're like, oh yeah, I definitely do. So in that situation, it works, but speaking, it wouldn't work for me. So I know you've developed this 7-step system, and talk to us a little bit about how someone can get in contact with you, Leisa. What would they, what do you have to offer them today? And of course, we'll have all your contact information readily available to everyone in the comment section on Facebook, as well as in the podcast. But talk to me about how someone can reach out to you, and why would they want to reach out to you?
Oh, thank you
Who's your
for
person
offering
that you
that.
want?
It's really easy. I actually have two gifts for our audience today.
Yay!
Yay. And very simply, you can just simply go to getspeakinggigsnow.com,
Okay.
and that'll be in the notes. And on that, your first visit there, you'll be able to get the 5 top tips to get more speaking gigs. So that'll come straight to you when you fill out the little form there. Also, if that's really like, you're like, she seems pretty cool. She seems like she knows what she's talking about, but I want to know a little bit more. I got a little dig a little more. That's fine. And it's really helpful information. This is all stuff that I use. It's all strategies that I still use today. The next gift is a speaker strategy session with me. And you can also get that on getspeakinggigsnow.com. And this is where we'll talk about what it is that you're trying to achieve. If there's something that I can help you with, my goal on that call is to really give you one like super trooper, amazing golden nugget that you can use and that'll really help you move the needle. And if it makes sense for us to have a continuous conversation about you moving forward in one of my programs, we will discuss that. If not, that's okay. We will be happy that we got to share that time together. So whatever works for you.
Yeah, what a wonderful gift. Thank you so much for, and sometimes it only takes that one conversation to really understand it and get clarity on where you need to go next. right? And so you have your ideal clients that you work with. We all do. And that's the strategy session really helps with that clarity for you to be able to understand if that's an ideal client for you and if you're the one that can help them, with the strategies that they're looking for and the outcomes that they're looking for.
Absolutely.
Lisa, thank you so much. So, I I can't say enough the impact that speaking has and why it is so important for all of us to have our voices be heard, and speak up. And if you, no matter what business it is that you have, be proud of it, want to get out in front of other people. I'm sure Lisa has even strategies to help you be confident in getting out in front of, the whole fear of speaking on stage and speaking in public and picturing people naked or in their underwear. I'm not sure what
I never tell people to do that.
I'm sure what people do today. That's what it was back in the day when I was, it was like you got to picture them in their underwear. I'm like, why would anyone on God's green earth want to picture people in their underwear?
I guess all about lowering the anxiety and increasing the confidence, right? That's the game that we're playing for sure.
It is. It's a mind game.
Yeah.
And, and once you get out there and having that confidence, if you exude that, the audience will really just take you in and it could just be a wonderful experience for you. So, Lisa, thanks so much for being here and offering that amazing gift to our listeners. I really appreciate that. All right, we're going to move on to Miss Connie Benjamin, the #1 international best-selling author. You can see the book behind her, Women with Fire. Oh my gosh, I love that. She's an international speaker as well as a podcast host. So I got to be a guest on Connie's podcast a couple of weeks ago, and that was so much fun to be able to, I love to have other people interview me instead of me being in the driver's seat sometimes. So Connie, welcome to the show. It is so great to have you here today.
Oh my goodness, Colleen, I am so excited to be here. You ladies are amazing and you are both on fire.
There's so much thank you, Connie, and I'm honored to have you here. There's so much that you do, not only in relationships, but really working on women working on themselves, right? And I talk about this all the time. We all have a power that we can tap into, and a fire, right? A fire is what you call that power that we can tap into. And not everyone knows how to do that. So again, what happened in your world? What happened in your world that brought you, because there's always a journey that takes us to creating, what we create. And what was that journey for you, and what happened in your world that pivoted to get you to the point you are today, Connie?
Well, Colleen, it really was a moment in time. So I was living in an area of town that was unsafe for my little girl. And it scared me, quite honestly. I would look down at her crib every night and be afraid because I knew we didn't have enough money to move. And at the time I was working at a job, and I'd get in my car every day, Colleen, and I'd drive myself to work and I'd cry the entire way there because I wanted to be home with my little girl. So you add those two things up, and I knew I needed to do something to make more money, but I didn't know business. I knew nothing about it. I was so beyond green. And so I started trying it out. I began to learn. And Colleen, I started to get some results. So eventually it started working and I got enough money to move. And I still remember the day when I'm in my new house and my little girl comes skipping across the kitchen floor and out into the backyard, and there's like trees everywhere. And she just got lit up and I felt like I did it. I won. Like I felt so excited. But I didn't realize in that moment that I was actually about to lose what matters most. Because you see, I had spent so much time focused on just my business that my health was deteriorating. I was so stressed out. I was disconnected from my girl. I felt like roommates with my husband. And I just felt like I lost myself. I don't know if anyone listening today, you amazing ladies, if you can relate to ever feeling so overwhelmed that you can't think clearly and you feel like you've lost yourself, but that's how I felt. And everything came to a head one day when I was late for an interview. So had a million things on my to-do list. My stress was just way up here. My daughter was throwing a temper tantrum. I was just overwhelmed. And in a moment of complete overwhelm, I actually picked up a glass and I threw it at the wall. And I remember, to this day, I can remember seeing pieces of shattered glass all around me. And in that moment, I realized I felt like that glass. I felt totally broken, unwhole, like just torn apart. And so I made a commitment in that day that I would do whatever it takes. And I remember saying to myself, Connie Benjamin, you will do whatever it takes to build your business in a way that you find yourself, you keep yourself, and you stay connected to the people that you love. You be on purpose. And so that's really what I've done is be able, for the last decade or so, I've been able to help entrepreneurs to be able to share their message in a way that they live on purpose and stay united with what matters most to them. And you know what's funny is, since we've been talking a little bit about what's happening in the world today, and recently what's happened is I started realizing that it was getting harder for entrepreneurs to share their message. It was just, the online space was crazy crowded. And so and that freaked me out, because I think we're at a tipping point where we need those messages. And so I actually developed a simple 3-step process where I help purpose-driven entrepreneurs to be able to cut through the noise of the online space so that they can share their mission, they can share their purpose. And that's what I do, and that's my story.
That's really wonderful, Connie. And thank you for being so vulnerable, because I have to say, there's so many women, and even Lead Up for Women in our community, and women that I've come across, where that's really the number one thing. I don't believe that they're living on purpose, that what they're doing isn't on purpose, or because of the responsibilities with children or families, we feel like we have to make sure everyone is okay first before we take care of ourselves. And how can we pour from an empty cup? How can we do that? And it is literally like reteaching yourself how to do that. And if you've come from my era of when I was being raised, it was like an insult to your family if you took care of yourself first. It was not, that's not what you did. Like, everyone ate first, and then you would eat. And that's just the way I was raised. You marry someone and have kids, and so many women out there need what you have available, because they struggle with understanding, even, how do I take that first step? So Connie, how does a woman take that first step to even realize that she's in a downward spiral or stuck, and there's no momentum for her moving forward?
I think that it's a feeling we get. So when I talk about, everything that I talk about is my fire within, in the work that I do in helping women share their stories, their personal stories and their business stories so they can be heard. In the work that I do with women, it's always about that fire within. And I believe that we all have a fire within. And what tends to happen is we often get stuck in what I call the the 5. I was like, how many are there? There are 5. The 5 Ds. And so some of those Ds are things like getting distracted. You talked about that, Colleen, getting distracted in some of the things that are going on, the expectations of others, all of those things. And we also get stuck as well in that feeling of really where it's a disconnection from who we are. We start to feel disconnected. We start to feel like, I don't really feel like myself. I don't really like myself right now. I just feel, I don't feel good in who I am. And often what happens is that leads to deception. And deception is when we start to tell ourselves lies about who we are. We start to say, oh, I get this one all the time, Colleen, where, I'm working with someone and supporting them and telling their story. They're uncovering their hidden story. And someone will say to me, but who wants to hear my story? What difference is it really going to make? Well, that's a deception. That person that that their life is going to change because of the work that you do, that's the person that wants to hear your story. Like, it's a deception, right? And that leads to the next one. And the next one is a feeling of discouragement. We feel like, we go into that deception. We think I can never get my message out. I can never reach enough people, whatever, those lies that we believe to be true, but they're just lies. And then that leads to that feeling of discouragement. I guess my business will never work. I guess I'll never be enough. And that next step, oh my goodness, this one leads to disharmony. And we see this in the world right now, where if we start feeling, I'm just going to be total real girl talk right now. Can I just, all right.
Thank you.
If we are contentious with ourselves, we will be contentious with others. It has to start with us. That's why it's the fire within. You light your fire within, you light up your family, you light up your community, you light up your work, you light up the world. This is what you're doing, Colleen. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And, I can't tell you how many women, when we're talking about the magazine and I'm looking for our members to write articles, and they'll say, I don't have a story. Well, we all have a story. We all have a journey that we've been on, and your journey is just as important than as the next journey. And so, and it's, you're right. It's the person that's going to hear the story. It empowers them. They relate in through your story with what's happening in their lives. And you never know how many people are watching, but you always need to know people are watching and they're motivated and inspired and educated by what we share. And stories are extremely powerful, which is why we call this podcast Speak Up. I don't want anyone to feel muffled, that they can't say it how it is that they feel. And I love that you shared that, Connie, because yeah, you can share whatever it is that you'd like to share on this podcast when it comes to that. And if we aren't being real with ourselves and loving ourselves and really embracing who we are, how are we ever able to do that with anyone else without it being something that we're doing just to do it, but it doesn't come naturally? By holding space for ourselves and being ourselves authentically, we automatically give the permission for others to do the same.
Totally, absolutely. And I love what you just said. It's so true that it really starts with ourselves and how we see ourselves, and that really creates a ripple effect. It's amazing to me that sometimes when we have those feelings of, well, who's going to want to hear my story? I don't even have a story. And like you said, we all have a story. And it's the funny thing is that I find that when we step into the place of, I don't have a story, maybe my story is not valuable enough to tell, what often happens is that we give a surface story, and we can't connect with a quarter-inch deep story. Like you don't feel somebody. And it's when we really, truly, that's why I'm so passionate about the work I do, because when we truly uncover the hidden stories, when we uncover who we really are, man, we light up. And I'll tell you, I know Leisa, and we had an amazing conversation this week about her story. And it's just it's so incredible when we understand who we are and why we do what we do. There's a power that we step into that is bigger than we can imagine.
What a beautiful opportunity for our listeners to be able to really uncover their story with you, Connie, and then get with Leisa and go out and just like share it with the world, right? What a great combination that we have going on this week on our podcast. And Connie, I know there's a book that you have, and we're going to post we're obviously going to post the link on that. But let me ask you the question, why'd you write the book?
Oh my goodness. Well, here we go. That is a good question. I wrote the book because I was inspired to write the book. And so I knew that the universe was calling me to write the book. And Colleen, to be totally frank, I had a baby and a toddler and a preteen, and my life was crazy. And there were times where I was writing the book in my closet with my laptop on top of my laundry basket, which was unfolded. Of course it was, because I didn't have time to fold my clothes. And I didn't feel enough. I didn't feel like I had a story to write. And so I understand that battle that goes on within us as we have that fire within us that's like, get lit up, please get lit up. The universe is calling us forward, and we've got that part of ourselves that's saying, but I'm not enough. but I can't do it. But my story's not enough. I understand that dichotomy because I've lived it. And that was the journey of my book.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Connie. And how can somebody reach out to you if they would like to work with you or understand if, what you have to offer them, really have that type of strategy call with you to understand a little bit more?
I would love to dive into your story. I want to help you discover your story. I have an incredible process that is so simple. In about 15 minutes or so, we can uncover your amazing hidden story. So, not the surface one that you're telling on Facebook, but I'm talking the unconscious one that's going to light you up. And I help you to tell that story. So, to get that, you can text me at 435-429-4672, and I'll give you that to Colleen as well. Or you can email me at connie@myfirewithin.com. And I'd love to just dive into your story.
I love that. Thank you. I know I'm inviting you to work with some of my clients and dive in with them on a webinar, and I'm very excited about that. So thank you so much for coming as a guest and sharing your genius with them. And I just think it's amazing. Thank you, ladies, so much for being with me today, for bringing our listeners your gifts forward and really keeping your fire lit. We're all called as light leaders, and no matter what that genius is that we bring forward, it's ours, uniquely ours. And it's not our responsibility to steal the oil from other women's lamps. It's our responsibility to light our lamps so that they can come out of the shadows and we can teach them how to light theirs and keep their fuel lit. And that is the most important thing that we can do as women, is lift each other, help each other, and help guide each other down the path. Because some of us have already been down the path, and some of us have never even trekked down the path. So instead of competing or judging or pushing each other off the ladder, our responsibility is to lead up and leave the ladder down for another one that needs us to lift them as well. And anyone can borrow my wings when they need it. They know that. So next week's show, we have on November 18th is going to be, November 25th, not today's the 18th, November 25th. So it'll be right before Thanksgiving. We have Tara Talicki with us. She's a world-class transformational expert. So she turns pain into peace. So obviously these are people who have had some trauma in their lives, as well as Dr. Teresa Irwin. I love her. Her name, you guys are going to love this. See, she is the vaginacologist. It's the best. She is a gynecologist, but she calls herself the vaginacologist, and her son gave her that name because of the work that she does, and you are going to love her. She is just one that you're going to want to come and listen to. So make sure you don't forget to log on for that one, or watch us on Facebook, or catch it on our podcast anytime. Of course, you can find us on all the podcast outlets as well, and at leadupforwomen.com. So a last message for today, women. Please remember, you are the only you that has ever been, and you are the only you that will ever be. So how you navigate your future and pioneer your life, it's up to you. So don't stay in the shadows. Give yourself permission to step into yourself, light your fire, and share your message with the world. Thank you, ladies, for being with us today, and thank all of our listeners for joining us. You guys have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.